Cienījamie žurnālisti, man ir prieks un liels gods šodien šeit Latvijā uzņemt manus Baltijas kolēģus, un mums visiem trim kopā ir liels prieks šodien uzņemt Ukrainas premjeru Jaceņuku kungu. Tas, kur mēs esam visi vienoti, ka mēs nekad nevaram atbalstīt Ukrainas aneksiju, un mēs vienmēr būsim par Ukrainas teritorijas vienotību. Bez tam mēs visi esam kopā mūsu solidaritātē ar mūsu draugiem Ukrainā, un kas ir ļoti svarīgi Ukrainai, un es domāju, ļoti svarīgi Eiropas Savienībai, tu palikt vienotiem visām 28 valstīm, palikt vienotām savā atbalstā un savā gan politiski, gan reforma atbalstā, es gribu teikt, Ukrainai. Tikpat svarīgi ir Ukrainas iekšēja vienotība. Ukrainas politisko spēku vienotība un skaidra ziņa Ukrainas sabiedrībai, ka Ukraina ir ceļā uz tām vērtībām, kuras cilvēki apliecināja stāvot Maidanā. Mums būs arī kopīgs paziņojums, ko mēs izplatīsim, bet mēs apspriedām arī bez politiskās situācijas, mēs apspriedām arī to, kas notiek Ukrainas ekonomikā, un mēs kopā paužam bažas par Nord Stream projektu, kur ir jautājums, vai tas ir ceļš uz enerģijas savienību Eiropas Savienībā. Tad mēs izteicām komplimentu par tām reformām, kuras ir veicis premjers kopā ar visu Ukrainas tautu, gan policijas reformēšanā, gan lauksaimniecības agrārās nozares reformēšanā, gan investīciju vides reformēšanā. Mēs arī, protams, mūs informēja Ukrainas premjers par tām lietām, kur viņš redz, kur vēl ir ceļš ejams. Tā ir korupcijas apkarošana, tā ir tieslietu sistēmas reformas, tā ir arī valsts pārvaldes uzlabošana. Un mēs, Baltijas valstis, to ļoti labi saprotam, jo tas ir tas, kas svarīgi arī bija mūsu valstīs. Un, es novēlu, mēs vēl tiksimies ar Ukrainas premjeru rītdien, kur mēs runāsim tīri, varbūt praktiskas dabas, divpusējos jautājumus. Bet es savā vārdā un Baltijas kolēģi vārdā, viņi savā vārdā arī pateiks, novēlu ļoti lielu veiksmi Ukrainai un Ukrainas tautai. Un paldies, Arsenī, ka jūs atradāt laiku atbraukt.
Liels paldies. Vārds Ukrainas ministra prezidentam Arseņam Jaceņukam.
Madam Prime Minister, distinguished colleagues, first of all, thanks you for hosting this kind of meeting. This is actually the first ever meeting in this format. And I would say that this is a historic meeting for our countries as we stay united and we demonstrate very strong unity, and your nations and your people stand by the Ukrainian people in our fight for our independence and territorial integrity. Russian-led aggression is a threat not only to Ukraine. This is the threat for the global order and for every country, EU member state, NATO member state, and for the free world. So we succeeded in deterring Russian troops, and it's so important to succeed in the European Union to retain unity over an issue of sanctions. Sanctions could be lifted only in case if the Minsk deal is to be fully implemented. Fully implemented means that President Putin is to pull back its forces, Ukraine is to seal the border, and Ukrainian government is to take over an entire control over Donetsk and Lugansk. On the Crimea issue, I truly commend and appreciate your strong stance in non-recognition of illegal annexation of Crimea. So we expect that the European Union is to roll over sanctions in case if Russia is not to implement the Minsk deal fully and in full compliance with the clear language of the Minsk deal. Ukraine is whiter than white in implementing Minsk, and for today it's up to Russia whether they are ready to de-escalate the situation and to get out of Ukraine. I truly appreciate, distinguished Prime Minister, your support in making Ukraine a robust and successful state. On the 1st of January, DCFTA is to be implemented. And neither Russia nor another country has any kind of upper hand or veto right over the implementation plan for the DCFTA. We are ready for countermeasures of Russian Federation. We are absolutely disappointed with the way Russia conducted technical consultations. So we believe that Russia is more focused on political agenda in an entirely economic deal rather than on economic agenda. Once again, the deal will be implemented, and Ukraine clearly says that Ukraine is to join the biggest European market, which is the EU market, and to make Ukrainian products more competitive, to get new markets, and to make a win-win situation for both the EU member states and Ukraine. We discussed the energy issues. And let me once again commend your strong stance and express my deepest consent over the idea to build a Nord Stream 2. And the fact is that in case if Russia and some Western companies will accomplish Nord Stream 2, this will deprive Ukraine of $2 billion in revenues. This will deprive Slovakia of $0.8 billion in revenues, Poland $0.3 in revenues, and this will even deprive the EU of real energy independence. So we ask European Commission, and I ask my colleagues and strong partners to seriously to get into this issue. And Russia is not allowed to facilitate a bottleneck and to control the energy market of the European Union too. So this project is to meet all criteria of the third energy package. We do believe that this project has nothing based on economic issues, it's more a political one, we as the state of Ukraine. We truly appreciate technical support and humanitarian support of your governments and of your people. And we strongly believe that together, in concerted action, staying united, we will make a success story for your countries and for Ukraine too. This is our joint future and our joint destiny in the EU.
Liels paldies, un tagad vārds Igaunijas ministra prezidentam Tāvī Roivas.
Thank you. The conflict in Ukraine is not over, and the final outcome, we all have to understand, has an impact to any other possible future conflicts in Europe or beyond. And if the West will lose this battle for democracy and freedom, and the disregard of international law and norms will prevail, it sends a universal signal what is accepted and what is not. So let's keep that in mind. Estonia, of course, strongly supports the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, as well as its European aspirations. We all know that part of Ukrainian territory remains occupied, and sanctions against Russia must be kept in place until complete fulfillment of the Minsk agreements. And this means the full restoration of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, including the control over the country's borders. We strongly support the elections in the eastern part of Ukraine under Ukrainian law and in accordance of the OSCE standards, of course. We understand that Ukraine is in a difficult situation as it is fighting a war in two fronts. trying to solve the conflict in eastern part of Ukraine and undertaking demanding reforms at the same time. What I can tell from my country's experience over the last 2 decades, reforms are always hard, they're very often difficult for politicians, but they, at the long end, are always rewarding. So, if I may recommend the Ukrainian politicians and members of parliament, I would give a recommendation to support the government's strong will to reform the country, even if it's sometimes not popular in the short run, but we all understand that it is needed, not so much for the EU, not so much for international sphere, but for the country itself. When Estonia took the path to EU, we did a lot of reforms, and today we can say that most of the reforms were more important and needed for us, and then in the second round also for EU. But the most important was that we did it for ourselves. We support the implementation of the association agreement between Ukraine and EU, and DCFTA coming to force on the 1st of January. If this means Russians buying less Ukrainian goods, this also means that we as Europeans should buy more. So any kind of technical assistance to make the Ukrainian goods eligible for European market, of course we will help. And as friends of Ukraine, of course we can do our small part by going to the shop and look for the good quality Ukrainian products that are definitely there. And one more topic, as both Prime Ministers have already mentioned, the Nord Stream project, it's quite clear that it would have a very significant negative impact on the gas supply of Ukraine, but not only gas supply, also, as we heard from Prime Minister Yatsenyuk's comment, that it's also clear budget revenue issue for Ukraine. And on top of that, we also have suspicions that whether it is in any accordance to EU's third energy package. So I trust the Commission to very seriously look into this matter and to give a very comprehensive overview of whether this project is at all in line of the EU regulations. So we are standing here together, we're standing here to support each other and to confirm that our support is rock solid. Thank you.
Paldies, un vārds Lietuvas ministra prezidentam Algirdas Kavičius.
Thank you very much. Today, together with my Baltic and Ukrainian colleagues, we discussed priority issues relevant to all our countries. Concerning the conflict in Ukraine, Russia must be reminded of its obligations under the Minsk agreements. The restoration of the border control is the most important. As regards sanctions, if Minsk agreements are not implemented fully by the end of the year, sanctions should be prolonged automatically and in their entirety. We will keep illegal occupation and annexation of Crimea on our agenda in all possible formats. We keep our firm position on deep and comprehensive free trade area. It shall be no further delays, renegotiation, or any legally binding trilateral agreements. It's important to complete the implementation of the visa liberalization action plan by the end of this year. We very much expect a positive final report by the Commission on visa-free regime for Ukraine in December. We fully support Kyiv's efforts in key reform areas and encourage all political forces of Ukraine to consolidate their efforts in implementing needed reforms. We stand ready to further provide our assistance.
Liels paldies! Mums ir laiks tieši pāris jautājumiem. Un pirmais tad ir Markus Kokanen, Lannen Media.
Mr. Yatsenuk,
Can you speak louder,
Markus
please?
Kuokkanen. I represent Lannen Media from Finland. The EU will have to decide about the sanctions by the end of, about continuing the sanctions by the end of January, and you explained what is your view on them. What is your understanding? Will the EU countries be able to agree on this?
No doubt. And I will tell you why. It's not just about Ukraine. This is about the European values. And the EU will stand united against those who decided to draw the new lines after the Second World War. And this is Kremlin. And the EU will stand against those who violated the UN Charter. The EU will act in concert against those who illegally annexed Crimea. The EU will be united against Russia, as Russia poses a threat to the European Union and to the global stability.
Paldies! Judita Čunka, Latvijas televīzija.
Judita Čunka, Latvijas televīzija. Jautājums Jaceņuka kungam. Eiropas Savienība nereiz vien ir brīdinājusi, ka var zaudēt Ukraina Eiropas finansu palīdzību, ja Ukraina neveiks reformas un neapkaros korupciju. Kā jūsu valdība cīnās ar korupciju un kā jūs pats raksturot šo situāciju, kāda ir jūsu valstī? Cik jūs spējat cīnīties ar ietekmīgiem cilvēkiem? Paldies!
So I want to be very clear that this government has zero tolerance on corruption. Where we succeeded in eliminating high-profile corruption in energy sector. No more gas tycoons in Ukraine. For today, they are under FBI investigation. No more middlemen in biggest state-owned enterprise, Naftogaz. No more corrupted and tarnished privatization. The good news is that last week, a report of 100 most richest people have been unfolded. So all Ukrainian tycoons fell by 50%. And another good news is that the revenues of the state budget increased by 55%. Where we succeeded, we passed a bill on anti-corruption bureau. And together with the EU support and the US and Canadian support, we already trained and equipped new anti-corruption detectives in Ukraine. The director of the bureau was appointed in the most transparent and independent manner through the selection commission. The selection commission proposed him to the president, and the president signed an executive order, and he became an entirely new and independent director of this agency. The government passed the bill on anti-corruption agency. And just imagine, I'm not sure whether you have this kind of system. You can easily log into the registers of Department of Justice of Ukraine. And you can track down every single asset of this prime minister. Whether he has a flat, whether he has the room, whether he has the building, whether he has any kind of companies, any kind of assets, everything is in an open register. Even more, the government imposed a criminal, I want to underline once again, a criminal responsibility in case if you fail to disclose your assets. We believe that a new nomination commission is to appoint a new anti-corruption prosecutor. This is the issue is still pending, but the quicker we make it, the better efficiency of the anti-corruption bureau we will get. The most crucial aspect And I will tell you frankly where we failed. Not we just as the government, because this is not the responsibility of the government. You know, this is the balance of power and division of powers. As the Ukrainian authorities, we need to pass a sweeping judicial reform. And the government is very committed to replace all 9,000 Ukrainian judges. As the key basement for every democratic state is the rule of law. And justice is to be served by impartial and independent and not corrupted judges. So we are on the same track with the President, and we expect that the House is to support this with the constitutional majority. Petty corruption. That's the reason why I asked my colleagues and my friends to support us in eradicating petty corruption, mainly in the public service, in the IRS, in the tax administration, in the customs clearing office, education, and healthcare. We asked the European Union to facilitate a top-up fund as a temporary solution, top-up fund for wages and salaries for the public servants. As an average salary is about $100 in Ukraine, this is the current average salary. You can't succeed in tackling corruption. So we ask for the top-up fund as a temporary solution to increase wages for a certain criteria, for a certain share of Ukrainian public servants, in order, on the one hand, to enforce fight with the corruption, and on the other hand, to inspire them not to take bribes.
Інна Боднар, 1+1. Арсенію Петровичу, ви коли сюди їхали, сьогодні зранку в парламенті говорили, що тут будете говорити про безвізовий режим. Ви ж знаєте, що в нас вдома не ухвалили закони, там от чубляться у Верховній Раді. Ну от прокоментуйте, що в нас чекає зрештою з безвізовим режимом.
Питання безвізового режиму зараз лежить уже не у політичній площині членів парламенту. No translation? Okay, I'll make it in Ukrainian and then I'll switch to English. Okay, okay, okay.
You can
fine?
answer for the television, no problem.
Безвізовий режим – це зобов'язання української влади перед українськими громадянами. І той, хто не голосує за закони, які підготовлені українським урядом разом з європейськими і західними експертами, той, хто не підтримує прийняття цих законів, він виступає проти того, щоб українські громадяни не просто отримали право безвізових поїздок до Європейського Союзу, а щоб українські громадяни стали дійсно частиною об'єднаної великої Європи. Я звертався і звертаюсь до парламенту. Уже без заяв про дипломатичні паспорти. You know the story. Ви знаєте цю історію. Про те, щоб проявити мудрість і політичну відповідальність. І не може бути взагалі дискусії. Якщо нема прийнятих законів, нема безвізового режиму. Якщо є прийняті закони, і ці закони відповідають критеріям Європейського Союзу, то у нас дуже високий шанс отримати безвізовий режим. Тобто, дорогі друзі, ідіть і голосуйте. Нікуди не дінуться, проголосують. Ми сьогодні якраз в 4 дуже ретельно обговорювали цю тему. І в цієї теми ж може бути 2 аспекти, розумієте? Тобто перший аспект є суто технічний. Чому я наполягаю на тому, що закони повинні бути прийняті? Тому, щоб ніхто не сказав з різних експертів, що Україна не виконала технічні критерії. А є другий аспект – політичний. Якщо буде хоча б одна зачіпка про те, що Україна не виконала технічні критерії, дехто може виступити і сказати, що саме з-за того, що не виконали технічні критерії, ми не прийняли рішення про надання безвізового режиму. Хоча ви розумієте, що зараз в Європі непроста політична ситуація, як в Україні, яка в першу чергу пов'язана з кризою refugees, мігрантів з Сирії. Колеги, мої партнери і колеги з Європейського Союзу запевнили, і їх запитайте краще, ніж мене, що якщо ви виконаєте технічні критерії, то політичних умов при наданні безвізового режиму не буде. І я в цьому переконаний.
Thank you. We have to switch to English Latvian
Беруться
again.
завтра,
Thank you.
післязавтра, на позачергову сесію, до вівторка. Будуть голосувати на благо українського народу.
Thank you. We have a last final question. Gerard says.
Hello, I'm Yadar Diaz from Reuters News Agency. I have a question about the present state of ceasefire. How seriously is it under threat at the moment? Thanks.
Well, today I got the report from the Department of Defense that 12 ongoing shellings already occurred. So this is a very fragile ceasefire. Once again, if we go back to the Minsk deal, we are ready to hold free and fair elections in Donetsk and Lugansk. But these elections are to meet all ODIHR or OSCE criteria and Ukrainian legislation. And the best way to hold free and fair elections is just to withdraw Russians and to pull back all Russian forces, because we can't get any kind of free and fair elections under the barrel of Russian gun, you know? So the ceasefire is not the implementation of the Minsk deal. The ceasefire is just the precondition for full implementation of the Minsk deal. So it's still fragile.
Paldies, es saku Latvijas, Igaunijas, Ukrainas un Lietuvas ministru prezidentiem. Paldies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will...
Thank you.